Hey everybody, my name is Seth. Welcome to my channel. This is going to be a preview of Mars through Gemini, through each decan of Gemini and the tarot's perspective on that and all that good stuff. If you want to see the full video, get a full idea of what I'm talking about when I talk about Mars through each decan of Gemini and each card up here, right here, represented by each decan of Gemini, you can hop over to my Patreon, patreon.com/CanceVirgoAstrology, and see the full video. But for now, enjoy this abridged version and hopefully feel inspired to become a patron and join me over there. Hey everybody, my name is Seth and welcome back to my Mars Through the Signs series. I'm really excited to get started. We just left off with Taurus and today we're going to go into Gemini. One of the key shifts here is the idea of moving away from the planet of projection. This is the planet that likes to become a part of what's going on in its environment. It does this by projecting itself, and it represents the consequences of that projection for better or for worse. So this projection can be something like passion, where you see like sex and art and even violence. It can be a projection that has something to do with power. That's where you find like wars as well as aggressive peacekeeping treaties. You see projection happen in many different contexts with Mars. It's kind of a broad description because it's a planet that has a lot of broad and factors. But the overarching theme, the full point, is to affect what's going on around itself. That's what Mars is about, affecting what's going on around itself via projection. Now, what this means for Mars is that it becomes an example of masculinity, the archetypal masculine energy. And I say archetypal versus just regular ideas of masculine or cultural ideas of masculine because this has nothing to do with having a penis. This has nothing to do with being a man and what a man is. And when you find Mars in your natal chart, this is where you find the context of Mars. So when at what? To propagate what? To originate what? To be a participant in what immediate environment? These are the things that we as humans are able to put answers to. Those are the questions we are able to answer with our own personal Mars placements. We decide what are we going to win. We decide what is it that we're going to originate. We decide how is it we are going to participate and invest and encounter things within our immediate environment. So there's a broadening that comes down to something a little bit more specific as you move from Mars generally to Mars in a person, a natal Mars. And then you get another side of things altogether when you start to add in the tarot and the tarot's description of what Mars represents. That description is found out here with the card called the Tower and the tarot. I'm using the Crowley deck, that's why you're going to find imagery that isn't very typical. But here you see Mars is associated with the idea of destruction. The idea of win or you lose, you fight or you die, you race or you get trampled. The choice is up to you. In the tarot, you see the sign represented by this card right here, the Lovers. This is a very exciting card. I feel like it's a very exciting card because it really exemplifies the idea of channeling, the idea of inspiration, and the idea of eros or erotic love, the overcoming of intense, irrational attachment and lustful need to express an inner need, an inner infatuation, like that need to express your muse, what it feels like when the muse comes, when you're enthralled with that muse, and when the muse eventually leaves. It will leave. Love does not last forever with this card. And how to deal with that, how to deal with it coming, how to deal with it being there, how to deal with it leaving. That's the all-encompassing idea of the Lovers. Last thing for us to talk about is the actual decans. What are they? Why do they matter? Every single sign in the zodiac makes up the 360 degrees of the circle, the chart. And each sign gets a dedicated 30 degrees. Gemini has its dedicated 30 degrees. Each sign has their own dedicated 30 degrees. So you take those dedicated degrees and you break them up into 3 sections. For Gemini, it's 0 to 9 degrees of Gemini, 10 to 19 degrees of Gemini, and 20 to 29 degrees of Gemini. And then from there, you move into Cancer, and you get 0 to 9 degrees of Cancer, so on and so forth for each and every sign. Why this is important is because what you're looking at once you zoom in is the transition. The idea that signs do not just go on and off like a light switch. There is a transition between Gemini and Cancer, between Taurus and Gemini. The last decan of Taurus and the first decan of Gemini influence each other. They are transitional points. Each decan is a transitional point. So you're looking at the Taurus-influenced side of Gemini with the first decan, and the Cancer-influenced side of Gemini with the third decan. And right in the middle is the most Gemini. The first decan of Gemini is represented by this card right here. It is the 8 of Swords, of how one reacts to a muse arriving. It's the expansion of all things. Your senses get heightened. Your ability to exert yourself becomes extended. You kind of just imagine love at first sight, what that could feel like. Imagine when you have an inspiration. To have a muse visit you. It's scary to have this big idea and suddenly have this flash vision of what you are capable of doing or what you're incapable of engaging in. If you're someone who's an artist who paints, let's say, or sculpts, that's my advice. You find yourself here in the second decan of Gemini, represented by the 9 of Swords. And bringing it on and having it be a disruption. And it will fully be a disruption when Mars is here. It will disrupt whatever it is that you have going on. Because this is about what you do, how you participate, how you engage, how you encounter. And it's being disrupted by a muse because it's Mars in Gemini. And when that disruption comes, especially when it's the second decan, especially when it's Mars in the second decan, there is a need for commitment. You cannot give this muse 50%. If you're finding ourselves in the third decan of Gemini, and it's represented right here by the 10 of Swords. Willpower and the respect for oneself to be able to let things go graciously, to let the inspiration die, to let the commitment that you made come to a close, let the story end. Let the experience end. It's what makes it an experience there. Or you guys are going to break up, and you need to understand that you can learn from that breakup, and you can learn from fully committing to someone and fully loving someone and not letting the idea that the relationship is over define whether or not that relationship was good. Because there are plenty of amazing, good, healthy relationships that are done, that are over, because they weren't meant to last. Thank you guys so much for watching this abridged version of Mars through Gemini. You can hop over to my Patreon and get the full version. I'm going to be putting up these abridged versions for each and every video, so if you haven't seen your Mars yet, it is coming. I'm really excited to be doing this. I feel really blessed to have the opportunity to do so. And I'm hoping that you guys are able to pull something from it, even if it is this abridged version. Hopefully I'm giving you guys enough that you can actually work with it. And if not, go over there and get the full version. Make sure to find me on Patreon, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. This is a lot of fun. I'm glad to be up here. I'm glad you guys are watching. And stay tuned because you never know what I'll be talking about next.